Megalodon was probably the largest shark that's ever lived.
Knowing how big Megalodon grew is tricky. Although we have thousands of their teeth, their body fossils are rare.
Megalodon was the most ferocious, incredible shark that ever lived.
Everything movies ever taught you about the largest shark that ever lived might be wrong. A single one of its teeth is bigger than a grown man's hand. It was a cannibal before it was even born, eating its siblings in the mother's womb. And its shape is something scientists still can't agree on today. Meet Megalodon. Its supposed body form that every film has burned into your memory is probably incorrect. Hollywood always simply pictured a giant great white shark scaled up to 60 feet. But science says otherwise. A frame like that, at that scale, would have shattered its own backbone. By the way, the great white is not Megalodon's descendant. But we'll get to that later. First, let's look at what the rival camps of paleontologists believe about the form Megalodon ruled the oceans in. Keep in mind that for the 200 years we've known about this prehistoric creature, we've had only its teeth and a handful of vertebrae to go on. Everything else we've had to reconstruct. So here's the heart of the argument. In 2024, a team of 26 researchers from 9 countries, led by Kenshu Shimada, remeasured Megalodon's fossil vertebrae and found a problem with the approach of simply scaling a great white up. The backbone of the fossil was way too narrow to do justice to this Hollywood calculation. A great white's bulky body, blown up to Megalodon's size, would have crushed its own spine. The scientific conclusion was that Megalodon was leaner and longer than we ever pictured. Closer to a giant lemon shark or a mako shark than a great white. Possibly stretching as long as 60 feet. For comparison, picture standing on the pitcher's mound and looking all the way to home plate. That's the animal, nose to tail. Maybe it was even larger. So which body shape was it? The heavy, stocky tank of the old reconstructions or the long, slender giant of the new ones? The honest answer is that the debate is still open. The fossils we have can't fully settle it. What no one disputes is the way Megalodon came into the world. Its species was almost certainly ovoviviparous, the same strategy the sand tiger shark still uses today. That means the mother carried her eggs inside her body, and the young hatched while still in the womb. The first to hatch then fed on the unhatched eggs and embryos around it. Scientists call it intrauterine cannibalism. A prenatal survival of the fittest, decided before the animal ever saw open water. The winner of that contest was born already larger than a man. And those newborns weren't released into the open ocean to fend for themselves. They were raised in protected nurseries. In 2010, a research team led by Catalina Pimiento identified one in the Gatun Formation of Panama. Up to 90% of the fossilized teeth found there belonged to newborns and juveniles. The bays were chosen on purpose, shallow and warm, too cramped for the giant adults to enter. The young grew up safe from their own kind. Because of tectonic uplift over millions of years, those ancient seabeds are now solid ground. We didn't find these nurseries by diving. We found them in the desert. Then the baby Megs grew up, and they moved out carrying the most formidable weapon the ocean has ever produced. A Megalodon tooth sat in a specialized cushioned root of dense bone-like tissue. A built-in shock absorber, because the jaw it served could bite down with an estimated force approaching 40,000 pounds. To put that in perspective, that is more than 10 times the bite of a saltwater crocodile. Recent chemical analysis of Megalodon's teeth suggests something else remarkable, that it was at least partly warm-blooded, running its body hotter than the water around it. That gave it power and reach. But it came at a price. A warm body in a cold ocean burns an enormous amount of fuel. Megalodon needed a constant, staggering supply of food simply to keep its engine running. For millions of years, that was no problem. The seas were warm and crowded with slow, fat-rich prey, like the early baleen whales. Megalodon ruled the global oceans for more than 10 million years. Then the world turned against it. Toward the end of the Pliocene, the global climate cooled, and it cooled hard. The whales adapted. They grew thicker blubber and followed the food into the freezing, nutrient-rich waters near the poles. Megalodon, a creature of warm equatorial seas, couldn't follow them. And then came a rival. This is the part most people get wrong. The great white is not a shrunken megalodon, not its child, not its heir. Megalodon belonged to the megatooth lineage, a branch that ended with it. The great white descended from an entirely separate family named the broad-toothed mako sharks. They weren't father and son. They were distant cousins, and the cousin was built for the new, colder world. The great white runs its own warm-blooded engine, but in a smaller, more efficient body. It hunts with surgical precision in cold, murky depths where the giant simply could not operate. While Megalodon needed an ocean of food just to survive, the leaner newcomer slipped past it and took the prey it could no longer reach. Eventually, around 3.5 million years ago, it wasn't killed by an asteroid or a single catastrophe. Instead, it starved out, got outpaced, and outlasted by a smaller, smarter rival. Which brings us back to the screen. If you grew up the way many people did, your fear of sharks has a birthday, the summer of 1975, when Jaws emptied the beaches. From there, it was Shark Week. And maybe you tuned in for the very first one back in 1988. And then, years later, films like The Meg carried the same image forward. And almost every movie or series shows you the same thing. A hyper-streamlined great white blown up to monster size. If the new science holds, all of it needs to go back to the drawing board. The real animal may have been longer, leaner, and stranger than anything Hollywood ever drew. We have mapped the surface of the moon in finer detail than the floor of our own ocean. Even the vast sonar networks the Navy strung across the seas during the Cold War left most of the deep unseen. We pieced this entire creature together from teeth and a few stretches of spine, and we still argue over its shape.